Okay, hi. Today is January 14th, 2012. My name is James Leone, and what I'm going to do is look into some of the things that I found about NewWave email settings that might go wrong for you while you're trying to use it, and then I'll do a few technical things that you may be able to follow up on to try to see whether your account is actually set up through the proper channels, and I'll provide a little bit of background information that's probably not generally known based on one of the commands I'm going to run from the command line. Now, I happen to be in Linux, and I have use of a program called Nmap that I downloaded and installed from the Ubuntu Software Center. I made another video that I might load up after this if you want to see the thought process I used during various stages to finally arrive at the partial conclusions that I've come to. And I can't come to any full conclusions because I'm not a NewWave.com customer, and at the end of the day I'm not going to be able to do much more than what I'm going to show right here. Now, in general, there's the first issue that can happen is if in your mail settings, if you don't have your incoming and outgoing servers listed as mail.newwavecom.net in both cases, basically the DNS won't resolve. And we get into what DNS is. DNS is a translation from the English letters you put in the box to an IP number. And so if you just have newwavecom.net in there, which I doubt, but if you do, then you're not going to get the request to check the email or the network traffic to send the email out won't get any further than your computer. There are servers out there that have a list of IP numbers associated with domain names, and apparently, in fact, I'll just show this using the ping command. The ping command will use DNS to resolve an English name to come up with an IP number when it comes as a result of a ping. And what a ping is, it just sends a signal out to whatever you aim it at, and then as a standard troubleshooting thing, that the place you send the small packet out to will send a response back. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I was doing this during my troubleshooting, so I'm just going to do ping newwavecom.net, and you'll see that it doesn't know the host. If I ping mail.newwave.com.net, it comes up, it associates an IP number with, I'm going to stop that because I don't want to ping them endlessly, it associates an IP number with the domain name. And the only way you're ever going to have any type of communication on the internet at all is if you're using English words to say you want to contact a certain computer, is if the DNS interprets itself from a name to a number. So if in your settings you're missing the mail part, mail.newwavecom.net, your mail isn't going to work. As you can see here, it's an unknown host until I put mail in front of it. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a program called Nmap, and I'm going to do it against mail.newwavecom.net because one thing I noticed here is when I ping newwavecom.net, it's actually associating that IP address with another domain name, which is Sinocore.com, with subdomains Emerald, Northwest, and SMTP. You could, if you wanted to, instead of putting mail.newwavecom.net in your box, you can try smtp.nw.emerald.sinocore.com if you still want to use English words, but it's so long. you know, misspelling could happen, but you know, if you double check on that, it'll work. I think natively to Windows, the ping command is already part of Windows if you have it. Probably a part of the Mac. I don't know if it'll display the IP address interpretation or other domain names that it's associated with, but there you go. So apparently by this, either NewWave Communications is actually Synacore, or NewWave Communications is subleasing from Synacore use of their email server for their customers. In the latter case, of course, NewWave, if there's a problem between NewWave Communications' ability to inform Synacore.com relatively quickly that they got a new username and password, then you might have a problem like that. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. Get a look at the results there. In Linux, you hit Control-C to stop the pings. You don't want to ping someone endlessly. I mean, you're just sending a packet there and saying, "Hi, I'm here. Can you please respond?" Okay. Clear. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run nmap against mail.newwave.com. newwavecom.net. Nmap isn't going to come natively in Windows, so you would probably have to download it from a site. You could probably find a binary for the Windows or Mac or whatever you happen to be using. I don't know about Haiku, but FreeBSD certainly and NetBSD at least will have it available in the ports. We don't have to compile it. The way it works basically and generally, you just type nmap and the name of the domain you want to go against. And what it will show are the different network services that are being made available by the particular server that you're querying, and that'll tell us whether actually this newwavecom.net, mail.newwavecom.net, will allow for outgoing email communications, which is usually SMTP port 25, and incoming POP communications, which is usually TCP port 110. It will also show whether they have other ports for encrypted email or both ingoing and outgoing, perhaps whether they have a webmail service available to the customers. Maybe you can check and send emails that way. So let's see what happens here. And also the other thing to keep in mind is that IP number from earlier from the ping, that if for whatever reason you're not able to resolve, for whatever reason your DNS settings is treating mail.newwavecom.net as the same as newwavecom.net, you can just use the IP number that I just got, and I'll show it again because I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, in the place of mail.newwavecom.net, and try to check your email that way. Let's just see what services they have running. So I'm going to press this. It takes maybe about a minute for Nmap to scan to see what kinds of open services or ports are open and available to people using the server. And that's basically what Nmap does. And then once I get the results from Nmap, I'll do a further step to determine whether if there is an open port 25, whether that port 25 requires authorization to send email out or not. I'm not really keen on using Telnet to check whether POP 3, if it's available, will, I don't have an email. I certainly don't have an email stored at newwave.com.net, so there's, I've never heard of POP without authentication, and I don't want to read someone else's email, and I don't have a username or password, so it's just it's pretty much a waste of time to check that. But since some ISPs do have open relays, I'm gonna look to see whether this is an open relay to sort out one of three possibilities for the requirement to send email out. Some ISPs will let you send email out without authentication. Some require authentication. And if your email client just happens to require that you use authentication to send your email out, but your mail program settings assume otherwise, it won't work, and vice versa. Possibly, unless most email clients do have a compensating, they'll try one, then they'll try the other. But even if your settings say it's one thing. Anyway, I'm getting to. Okay, so let's look at this. It says that port 25 is open and port 110 is open, and it's got a port 80 that's open. Now to me that means webmail. So let me just check to see whether if I put in mail newwavecom.net into a browser, and that's all, whether some kind of webmail service, web page, or login comes up. That may be a nice, easy way to check. My internet's a little bit slow here for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so now I got Google. I'm just going to put that in there and see whether... I know it's going to resolve because Ping told me that it would. And if it asks me for a login page, then you could at least know that you can check your email this way. Although not, probably not ideal. Some of the phones, some of the browsers on these phones are not. Now it's going to nwcable.net. I don't know if it's just me or not. It's having DNS resolution problem. I think I'm having some. There must be something else going on with our internet connection that's slowing it down. But it seems to be. Now it's redirecting me to static emeraldcinecore.com. It redirected me to NWCable but couldn't establish a connection. Just try this thing one more time. Question is, am I getting? Yeah, I'm getting DNS resolution. So there's mailnewwavecom.net. And what's happening with these leased out subdomains is that it's going from it just flashed down there at the bottom. It redirected to nwcable.net, and then after that it tries to go to this emerald static thing that comes up there, in one form or the other. So no, you're not going to get webmail out of this. At least I don't think anything that's reliable. Okay, so I know that SMTP is open, and that is a non-encrypted port. And I know POP is open, and that's non-encrypted. So if you have the option use SSL checked off for either ingoing or outgoing email, that could be a problem. You want to uncheck that because those use different port numbers. SSL SMTP, Secure Socket Layer Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is a different port number. That the number escapes me, but I think it's somewhere in the hundreds. Now let's look. Okay, so here we are. It's starting to give me something. I mean, it's having problems going through all these different relays, but okay. Now there's some. What's this toolbar here? NewWave toolbar. That's some download. I don't want to download. Log in. Let's go back. Hello. Okay. Log in. And I wonder. See, I can't log in. Yeah, so maybe you can check your web email. And I don't know if I was just having a problem here, but basically it's www.nwcable.net/files/newwave/login PHP. This actually points you back to the server that has your email on it. I saw a little dialog box down there. It's got at newwavecom.net. You could try your username and password there, and you're at least going to find out whether they set you up. And maybe if you're able to log in, you might be able to use Webmail. One of the problems that's going on with this is that your newwavecom.net has the DNS resolution gets redirected to nwcable.net, and then that gets redirected to this emeraldsynacore.com, and if the DNS server is slow for in fact, I'm going to do a whois. Whois mail. This you won't have in Windows or Mac OS X, but you might be able to find a binary for it, or you can go to the Network Solutions webpage and do a whois that way. NewWave.net. It doesn't even have a domain name registration. It's kind of weird. It does have a domain name registration for newwavecom.net, and usually that's the way it works. If this NSA IBBS-online.com, if that DNS server is slow in handling these multiple redirects, then you're going to have problems. That it'll time whatever you're trying to do will time out quicker than the first name newwavecom.net resolves to an IP number, which resolves to nwcable.net, which resolves to Emerald. If you're checking of email, if your program will time out after checking your email in 10 seconds, but the domain name resolution requests take 15, it'll look like you don't have reliable service. Next thing I'll do is whois nwcable.net, just for information. Domains by proxy. It's got another DNS server, so you have another DNS server to register with. This is through GoDaddy, so we don't know who actually owns this. Maybe domains by proxy, I don't know. If I ping nwcable.net, I'm getting okay, let's stop that there. I'm getting 207.47.185.65. If I ping NewWave.com, I'm getting a different, or am I? I'm getting a similar IP number 208.47.185, but 65 instead of 132. And then if I ping this, I'll add this. I'll add the M. I'm still getting 132, so it's the same as NewWave.com. Come on, stop. Okay, that stopped. I'm getting the same IP address as mail.newwave.com.net. So this 2847185.132 is a number you can put into your mail settings instead of mail.newwave.com.net, and you'll still be able to log in and authenticate and check your email. Now the problem here is that we got a different, got a slightly different but in the same subdomain as. So basically, this MyWave is owned by the same company that provides the open SMTP ports for your email. So what does this all amount to? One, make sure if you use the mail newwave.com.net in your settings, you got the mail in there. If you don't have mail in there, your email is going to go nowhere, not even outside your computer, because the DNS name won't resolve. The second thing that can happen is because this, at least on port 80, NewWave communication redirects two different sites with two different IP addresses, but on the same subnet. It could take a lot of extra time for you to actually communicate with the IP address that you want to get to, and that might take more time than your email program allows it to time out, and therefore it'll time out before a network communication comes back to you, and you just won't get any email. And the third thing that can go wrong is if you have secure socket layer checked off for any of your settings, the ports there, as they show in Nmap, or plain text communications between you and the server on those ports. So you should probably uncheck those things if you have SSL set there at all, which is exactly the opposite of what I suspected before. But my main suggestion is that you put in, instead of mail.newwave.com.net in the box, that you put 208.47.185.65, and that way you'll communicate directly with the server that your email is stored on. Now the only thing that can go wrong that's outside of your control is if for whatever reason NewWave Communications isn't able to get in touch with Synacore, who's apparently hosting their email and web pages quickly enough that if you change your username or password, if you sign up, that for some reason there's a delay between the time you set your thing up and when they do. But that's it. That should be it for my suggestions, and I hope that helps.